You'd have to question a player's sanity when they pick a fight against Zdeno Chara. A man's a beast, but surprisingly that wasn't the worst fight in NHL. Here are the worst times NHL players got decimated. Ryan Reaves loses a tooth. During a regular season game just before the postseason, things soon turned physical during the second period. Brent Seabrook, anticipating Reaves' arrival near the boards, saw an opportunity to make him taste the glass as he sought to grab the puck. Reaves, who lay immobile for a few seconds, was able to slowly recover himself and make his way to the bench, where the severity of the impact was instantly apparent as number 75 was shown delivering a tooth to his trainer following the impact. Sidney Crosby getting hit in the back of the head. It's the second regular season encounter between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the familiar nemesis, the Columbus Blue Jackets, a squad whose roster includes one of Crosby's most fierce enemies, Brandon Dubinsky. The two had dropped the gloves for the first time the previous season, and the Jackets forward clearly remembered it. We also want to remind you to subscribe to our channel to not miss our daily content. The mutual hate quickly came to a head after some shoving back and forth in front of the net between the two, not long after the pair engaged in fisticuffs. Crosby was seen falling to the ice immediately after being struck by Dubinsky's stick, which hit him so hard that the stick actually shattered in half. Crosby was seen holding his head while being smacked again. The hit drove Crosby to the locker room and Dubinsky to the penalty box, but that wasn't the end of the consequences for Dubinsky, who was suspended for one game and forced to forfeit more than $34,000 in results. Crosby, who was later questioned after the game following the incident, made his view on Dubinsky known, saying, "I'm not shocked. If I was going to get one of those shots, it would probably be from him." Milan Lucic, knocked out on ice. If you know anything about the NHL, you'll know that this guy isn't afraid to drop the gloves. In fact, the forward has earned a reputation for being one of those people you don't want to mess with over the years. Dalton Prout was the one who dared to challenge Lucic during a regular season game in Columbus. Prout was observed flinging his gloves and stick aside following a one-on-one argument in front of the nets, immediately after attempting to spear Lucic. While Prout may have done the unthinkable with a single blow, Lucic was evidently enraged and sought to land a punch before officials interfered. Brad Marchand punched in the private area. Except for Marchand, we all knew this one was coming. Fortunately, this was number 63's turn to wear the mic, so we could not only see but also hear it. I'm curious if Marchand ever regretted not listening to his coach about being good. Nonetheless, the forward decided to chirp the Canucks squad until one of them decided to dish it back, not verbally, but under the belt. Marchand noticed Brandon Prust casually skating and playing pool jock style, and seconds later, Marchand was heard screaming in agony after his private area was hit. Prust received a 10-minute game punishment and a $5,000 fine for his part in the accident, but he said it was well worth it. Prust was interviewed after the game about his ban and punishment. He referred to it as the best money he'd ever spent. When Tom Wilson meets the Lion. In the second and final regular season game, Ryan Reaves took it upon himself to remain in Tom Wilson's mind and dreams. After being caught off guard by Reaves' skating, the Caps forward was taken down, the impact threw his helmet and body flying. Following the game, Reaves gave an interview in the locker room. "You know, if he sees me, I know he's going to attempt to lay me out, and I'm not going to allow it to happen," Reaves said of laying Wilson out. "I believe he was only checking his pass and ended up running into a lion in the jungle." Wilson suffered a concussion as a consequence of the hit, but many saw it as retaliation for the previous blow the forward delivered on Oscar Sundqvist earlier in the season. Reaves happily signed copies of Wilson's photo on the ground, who was bewildered by the Winnipeg native and even added a personal touch to the photos. Ovechkin injury while playing for Russia. In the 2014 World Championships, while representing his home country Russia against Team Germany, Ovechkin would skate onto the ice hoping for a win, but would leave the game in an ambulance on his way to the hospital. As Ovechkin attempted to exit Russia's zone, German forward Marcus Kink decided to deliver a questionable hit on his opponent, hitting Ovechkin's right knee. As Ovechkin lay on the ice for many moments, it became evident that the hit itself would have a greater impact on the forward than he had anticipated. Ovechkin, who sustained a ligament damage, had to be helped off the rink, but it was already obvious that he was favoring his right leg. But happily for Ove, he was finally able to return to play, as he would later go on to take gold for Team Russia. Matt Cook is given the cold shoulder. Cook has a knack for enraging the wrong people, which generally results in severe consequences. Following a pair of hits exchanged between Cook and defenseman Duncan Keith during a regular season meeting against Chicago, things soon heated up in the first period. Cook opted to plow at Keith with his upper body, knocking him to the ice as he was attempting to retrieve the puck in his end behind the cage. Keith, clearly fed up, decided to take matters into his own hands in an attempt to even the score, but objectively he did more than that, as Cook, who was in his own zone at the time, was caught off guard as Keith acquainted his shoulder with Cook's head, who lay on the ice briefly knocked down. Keith received a minor penalty for interfering with the play as a result of his conduct. Ryan Reaves sucker punched. Things in Bridgestone Arena in the third period of a regular season meeting in 2010 quickly boiled over. After laying a heavy hit out on D'Agostini, Jordan Tootoo decided he wasn't done and sucker punched Ryan Reaves in the neutral zone before there was an opportunity for a fair battle. This, of course, provoked a confrontation between the two squads, with Brad Winchester intervening to confront Tootoo before Reaves rose to defend himself. Tootoo and Reaves were both given 2 minutes minor penalty. Evander Kane gets decimated. For decades, Zdeno Chara has towered over his NHL opponents, and during his lengthy career he's established quite the reputation for being the one man you don't want to mess with. As a result, you have to give Kane some credit for displaying tremendous bravery when battling with the defenseman. Kane, who was only able to get a shot in on Chara when he was down, didn't have the same luck once the gloves were off, as he was dealt repeated jabs by his opponent before the referees interfered. Sidney Crosby taking an elbow to his face. You might say Crosby has dealt with his fair share, as he's been a target for quite some time, but on New Year's Eve in 2011 he had the biggest concussion ever inflicted to the number 87. As the second period of the Winter Classic came to a close, David Steckel opted to deliver Crosby a cheap shot while presenting his elbow to the forward's head. Crosby was seen bent down as he skates away at the end of the period. Of course, this would put in motion a chain of circumstances that would keep the captain in and out of the lineup for the rest of the season. Steckel maintained his innocence, saying he never intended to damage Pittsburgh's star player and that he never wanted to see any player wounded whatsoever. Steckel had been feeling so much guilt since the day it happened that he tried to apologize to Crosby through his former teammate Derek Englund. Now on to something a little less violent. Click the video on the screen to watch the most embarrassing moments in NHL.